At the end of every
But
chapter.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You know, it was fun.
You.
I'm thinking about it. I mean,
Catch it,
but yeah, I'm taking a break now. But it's the nice thing is what,
Thank you.
especially this time.
528.
The amount of people that voted.
How come I don't have a
Outpouring of
528?
people vote, however they voted. We know how they voted, but I mean.
I can't find it.
The outpouring and the process that the people downstairs do is phenomenal. You know, they really do.
Just
great
stuff for
job.
tonight.
They really do.
There's-
Very smooth. Had the results like that, you know, even with some shenanigans.
What the heck is
You know,
528?
But they just ring and parody. Like, how are you? Fine. Yeah, I'm just before 9 o'clock at the results. So it's good. Yeah.
Oh, there's one at the desk.
Hey, Scott,
Um.
on a 401. Yeah. On 401.
Did you ever,
It's fun. I like talking about it, so it's fun for me. You know, I enjoyed it.
How loud of
I wish I got next.
speakers?
I don't know.
Of course it is.
Find out, I guess.
lean back on- And there was one time I was here, Bill Moore sat in one and went, right, ass up. No.
Five 25 to 5.
I know. Well, that's the showcase after we.
Yeah, so this is one, I understand it, the other one's
Yeah.
not so. sharp, but, you know, I can build Sandwich commercial all around there.
It's not good.
Latest and greatest.
Oh, thank you. People have been screaming for.
Can I just have your attention? Does everybody have this copy?
Yep. I do.
Yep.
Like reading medical stuff. This stuff,
Right?
it's dry.
I thought I was having a root canal.
Yeah, I know.
Are they insinuating something here?
Just for a minute after the meeting, because I just had a quick question for you. Okay.
Well, we
Absolutely.
can't get better than ABC except with an occasional V thrown in.
You always.
Glasses. I see that.
Thank you. It doesn't go, it doesn't go unnoticed.
Well. Hey, Bob. Hey, how are you?
Good evening.
Have you been to see my daughter? Okay, you haven't.
Except for Mark, our perspective.
Good.
I know, I'm saying, I've never seen this table full.
Really?
Busy.
Actually pretty. We do.
Yeah, as busy as I want to be, This issue. especially for one person.
Trial period,
Right.
so.
I sub out for this stuff.
This is very excellent. Third time's a charm.
You got that proposed land, village here. Shown.
He broke it. Oh.
Oh, boy. They're gonna take that out of your pay, you know.
Coming right out of your pay.
There goes this week's paycheck.
And somebody else. Oh, Jean. Hi, Jean.
I don't think the bidding.
Only thing I don't understand There's no.
No,
root.
and that's that girl. that's-
Yeah, but I asked that too.
He's gotta be frozen
Huh?
solid.
Yeah, she was up there in sneakers and
I
Okay, I'm
agree.
happy.
I asked that.
Like.
gym pants.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your future, I was like.
And it's been- We were up, drove across the Kangas Highway, like 3,000 feet, you know, you get up to that height.
Drew,
It was like
Drew,
this much snow.
I didn't know you were a
Yeah.
part of the
And
committee,
so at.
doing the,
when she was
corridor,
going,
the Route 11
Gotta
corridor.
be,
is-
the
Yeah.
guy was saying it's
didn't know
your
that.
chest.
And found that out last night
Came in
for the
just
first time.
Sneakers on.
They came in last night to present it.
Oh, did they?
Little thing too, she's only 115.
I- Yeah, so I attended a
stupid.
couple of those meetings and I gotta tell
Gonna
you,
run up and do 3 hills.
Dave?
where would
It says
it
Lafayette,
put a gun to my
haystack
head?
Oh, I know, I know.
between
I know exactly what you're saying.
and Liberty.
I deal with the
Kidding me?
That's fine.
I'm part-time.
Everything that they kind of concluded and came to,
And if
already
you,
had
when you
it.
get the
They
flu,
already
you gotta
knew
go
what
down
they were
through the
going to
flat.
do.
That's the only
they're
way.
just appeasing us and asking us to participate.
Stay away from it.
It was-
Mhm.
Because
I'm
everywhere.
like, I'm just.
No, it's not gonna turn out well.
Know what I mean?
It
Like,
was.
attend enough meetings
Not in the rescue.
Yeah.
without just wasting our
That's
time.
without-
Like, Yeah.
I mean, over 300 pages of information. Like you said, a lot of it was started back in
70s.
in the early 2000s.
Yeah, well, they, the one thing that we press for the kind of the history, because they've kind of gone down this whole alternative corridor rerouting thing.
Yeah.
A while back, and we're like, well, what
Doesn't
happened?
show nothing.
And nobody could answer.
Oh.
And if you read through the documents,
Where's
they
Route
still
11?
didn't really answer it. It just kind of
Fizzled
fizzled
out.
away.
It
Yeah.
fizzled out.
Here.
Yeah. Now they're bringing it back.
11 is there. 140 there. 28 north there.
2 more minutes.
You sure?
We're going live in a moment, gentlemen.
Going live.
Letting you know.
Everybody got the
This-
makeup
yeah.
done?
Boy, that's- Especially for me,
There's no.
pride, to put my. foot down.
Yeah, they.
So, I mean, there's no deviation of.
Doug Brown.
Former member of the planning board.
Well, who knew 2 minutes was so long?
Depends if you're underwater and holding your breath.
You'll be in trouble if 2 minutes went by, I'll tell you.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
There was a time 2 minutes wasn't bad. Maybe up to 2.5 minutes.
I used to be able to do it, really.
Oh, I could too.
Yep, same here.
Over 2 minutes, but
That was a
Not
long time
now.
ago.
That was
you're
when
30
I was
seconds.
dreaming. That was when I started.
And when I was a diver.
Mhm.
It's amazing what free diving will do for you. You can hold your breath to get back up there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're diving off the Mount Washington dock sign and trying to grab quarters.
After a pool.
Well, that's why you do this. Let them float into your hand.
Have the recording. Okay.
Right. All right, well, let's call this a joint workshop with the Alton Planning Board and Master Plan Committee to order at 6 p.m. So I think what we're here to do is go over the latest updates to the town master plan. Hey, I beat the times. I think Tara, if you could maybe have Tara walk us through what, because we did get kind of a memo with a number of edits.
Hi, Tara.
I can do that. I think the members of the committee could too, but I'm glad to. What's your pleasure?
All right, well, is there a committee member who wants to jump up and take the lead?
So we had sent out.
I take that as a yes.
Yes.
No, I'm
No,
just trying
oh,
to steer.
shucks.
I know we had sent out an email that had the updates. So I guess we are just, as the committee, as the master plan committee, looking to the planning board to see if you had any additional questions or comments to what was discussed at the last planning board on October 18th. I believe.
Yeah, and this memo is also incorporates the additional edits we got from the chair the next day, I guess it was.
Right, that Drew had said he had some edits, but he had not had them with his person that night, so he had emailed them.
Yep, so
And
so
some
you'll,
notes had gone out in an email as well. to
so you'll
everyone.
see those are on the list too.
Yeah, I particularly like your edit to on page 4-3, or at least your explanation of your edit. I think that's hysterical.
And the map, the separate handout,
Barrel sheet.
was to show that, because I've heard at a couple meetings concerned that we're recommending a rezoning for the rural residential district. So I did this map to show that we in fact are, but we're recommending upzoning pieces of it, not downzoning any pieces of it. As you see on the map, the,
Have the new printout. It was with the agenda that came out tonight,
Yeah.
so it's 3 pages. So that's what Tara's speaking about right now.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the proposed future land use for the village area with the current zoning. I made that to try to address the concerns about the rural residential district. Your zoning map is a little tough because there's brown and brown, but if you can kind of make out that the central piece of brown is a little bit brighter and is residential commercial. And the recommendation is to take that and make pieces of it into an Alton Bay district and an Alton Village district and a commercial district.
Difficult.
And then in addition, take some pieces of the rural residential and also make them commercial, and take some pieces of the rural and make those commercial. I know it's tough where you don't really have a GIS zoning layer yet, so we couldn't kind of officially overlay the two, but none of the letters on the land use map in the document that talk about the future land use map, none of those are on the rural residential district, except what you see on this blow up. So I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding that we're talking about down zoning pieces of it when we were actually talking about up zoning pieces of it.
I don't know what you just said.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that maybe you could kind of clarify a little the up zoning versus down zoning, just.
So up zoning means allowing more things and denser use. And down zoning would be
Taking away.
Take it over.
what I think you're concerned about, that we were talking about taking rural residential and making it rural. That's what I would call down zoning. We were in fact talking about taking pieces of it and making it commercial, where you could do more and have denser development.
Which is fine.
And-
Why eliminate the rest of it?
The rest of what?
The residential rural. You're taking a piece of, you got the residential rural and you want to take some of it, make it commercial, which is more available for business and everything, that you say you want. So yeah, take a little bit of the residential rural, but now you're going to cut a line there and then cut the rest of the residential rural. Gone.
I wonder where you got that idea. What
No.
we're trying to
I get the idea.
understand.
I can see it in
Wait a
front of
minute.
my eyes.
Yeah.
Can we just,
What we're trying to understand is what you're looking at that's giving you that impression, because we're in fact, the
Sure. When you
Let her finish. Let her finish. So.
the plan does have a sentence on page 5-19 that says, after the zoning districts are reconfigured, the role of the rural residential zoning should be reevaluated. And at that time, you might want to incorporate some pieces into other districts. If that's what's getting everybody upset and excited and having a wrong idea, this plan would be fine without those 2 sentences.
that plan is actually mentioned numerous places through the whole reading, is getting rid of the residential rural zone.
Can you point
I
us?
don't know where that is.
Don't see that. either.
So really, I think, let me just take a stab at this, to see if I understand what the intent was, that it's, yes, we're eliminating the classification of rural residential is what they're proposing. And it's going to be replaced with this, Alton Bay district, the Alton Village district, and then some of it will be commercial. So it actually could be increasing the opportunities within that area. Do I have that fairly correct?
Yes.
You have it correct, except there isn't a recommendation to then eliminate the rest. There's a recommendation to think about whether the rest is still needed after you've done all that. But there's no, I'd like to know where he's looking that's given him that impression so we can fix it.
That's you.
I believe it is. They were pointing to the map of on page 520.
Right.
Right.
There's no RR on it. They're assuming that it's
It
being
is
gotten
gone.
rid of.
Yeah, and we've just, I don't really know how to address that misconception that it's a zoning map when it's a future land use map.
Yeah, it's a
Right, they're two different animals.
That's
And-
why I blew up the piece where there is overlay of the things we're talking about and the rural residential district. That's why I blew up that piece of the map and put the zoning under it.
So you have proposed, we're gonna add the word proposed to that title of that map too.
That's what we talked about last.
And we did.
But it's not a proposed zoning map, and we can add that we can put it as a subtitle.
No, it's not a zoning map. I'm just saying, we said we would add proposed to the title, future land use map.
Right, but it sounds like some people are still wanting it to be a zoning map when it's not. That would take a lot more work to take this plan and translate it into a new zoning map.
On this one too.
Exactly. So I don't see the reason why we're talking about this, but don't have a plan. Because on the 28 corridor, we all know that's a limited access highway. And to get access off that is next to impossible unless you're somebody like Bob Bear that comes and says, well, I'll throw $1,000 at something. And then you get a driveway permit, and not everybody can do that. So, and I know previously we tried a zoning change and working down the New Durham Road a little bit. Oh, boy, did that hit resistance, I'll tell you. That was a real strong headwind on that. Between 28 and 140, that's all well and good, but there's just not much access out there or anything of that nature. So these commercial zones, I think, are very, very limited on how they'd be used. These proposed commercial zones, pardon me.
So I'm just going to kind of grab onto a couple of words that I heard, the separation of land use versus zoning. And is this similar to kind of what I've seen done in other towns where they do these overlay districts? Is that kind of what you're heading toward, or?
No, the state law requires you to only have two pieces of a master plan, the vision and the land use. And the land use is supposed to show the planning board's vision for the future land use of the town, future growth and development. That's the land use map. And we knew that there would be a lot more work before this translated into zoning. And that's why we didn't draw lines on it, but just kept it more general to indicate, here's an area that's worth looking at to see if you could allow more intensive commercial development.
So where those Cs are, even though, as Scott points out, there's some limited access along 28, still, that's probably the best spot for that to occur. And
We've always said the 28 corridor would be very good. I mean,
Right.
that's always been
up
a
to point,
conversation.
Up to about where they've at the tops.
Well, you're going up to Bay Hill roughly.
Roughly
about.
up, yeah, just
That's what I'm
up
saying.
in there, yeah.
Pretty
And
much.
so the point is that over time, can you work towards getting that done? Could you work with the state? Could you work with DOT? Would the town want to do that?
The town would only be the one that had a ghost of a chance to achieve it, unless you, like I said, you throw a ton of money at it.
Well, I'm just saying the town, so what we're doing is we're putting in place a planning document, 2 years worth of work, put this together. It responds to a questionnaire we did with the public. So it meets all the planning efforts that you should have in order to do something. And then you work with the state to try to get this done. this all is a suggestion of the best way to go. Whether you'll get there or not, it's a planning document, you know?
Well, we
So-
have to be careful though, pardon me, but this, master plan is a living document
Yeah.
that governs a lot of what happens here. And so I think, like we've talked about in the ZAC meetings, let's not throw something out there just so we have to fix it later on. That's.
I don't know, I mean, where would we put commercial? I don't know where else we'd put commercial, frankly.
I mean, there has been a big push.
Yep.
You got to admit, over the years, everyone says, oh, we need more commercial. We need more commercial.
We do. We
Well,
we should
you're
have a
never gonna
balance.
you're never going to raise taxes with a commercial. The waterfront is our tax base. There's no question about that.
Well, I think you should look at splitting the town into 3 different regions: commercial, residential, lakeshore.
What
Is-
the
Which is kind of what this.
questionnaire showed us was that people wanted more small things. They didn't want to see big development. But they did want more development. Whether it's restaurants or different types of stores, it's a variety of things. You have to have a place to do it because there's nothing in town.
Well, unless you're a tradesperson, there is no jobs basically in this town.
Unless you're what?
A tradesperson.
Well, what else is happening, of course, is a lot of people who are living here now who are working from home. And they're making a good money at that. So that's a new, that's
It's a new
something
rental.
new.
I
that's
don't know
happening.
how long that's gonna last, but
I
it
think
is what it is.
Maybe the paving the way of the future.
I don't think it's gonna change. I don't think it's gonna.
That's
change.
not material to the commercial district. Huh?
No, and that's not material, right, as Doug says, that's not commercial, material to it, but where, if you wanted to try to develop some commercial, where would you put it? It's gotta be somewhere around the town, around the traffic circle, around,
Near the village.
If you pass this plan,
is not passing it. This is a plan,
I know, but
and so it doesn't,
if it got passed the way you have it set right now, there's no defining lines where the commercial starts and stops and that.
That's because it would have to be worked out.
yeah,
This
that's,
is a suggestion at a beginning concept.
yeah.
You'd have to have a whole
At the very
series.
least, this is just a suggestion for the planning board at the very least. That's all it is. I mean,
I know, but
At
if
the
the
most,
planning
that's-
board
Is-
said,
is-
okay, we're all set with it, like. the
Yeah,
selectmen
but there's
board
all,
did.
No, as an opening base.
you've got a lot more work to do.
Yeah,
This is
This
an
is
opening,
just a start.
this is an opening base just to have an idea of expanding the use of commercial in the village area or in the rural area around the 28 corridor to see if we can expand a few businesses and not having the large businesses because nobody really wants the large businesses, but keeping it with smaller businesses.
What about the Route 11 corridor?
Goes,
That's limited also.
well,
It's
it's,
also limited access.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
But
I think there are chances of having some bigger chunks of land
it's
on
conceivable.
the Route 11 end of it versus 28.
so that's a good point. I think where up near Rand Hill Road where that all got cleared there.
Yep.
That's a possibility right there.
Where's this now?
Rand Hill Road.
when you're going up to.
Where
the-
Conley,
yeah.
Conley cleared all the land.
Yep,
there.
mhm.
Now, that's a possibility. And we already have some storage sheds there and stuff like that.
And they came in with a proposed plan.
That's
at
right,
one
right.
point.
Right.
So,
So, yeah, you want to put another C there tonight? We can do that.
yeah,
Well, so the reason that you guys decided not to was an evaluation of the development limitations over there. And consistency with other pieces of the plan.
and
Russ, you and I looked at the development limitations
Presently, it's
on
in the
that.
rural residential zone.
what is
That's right.
That marina, that area is.
On
rural
Route 11?
residential. Yeah.
okay.
But Alton Bay, is the whole end of the bay. I mean, there's no lines on here, Lee, on purpose. Because you can't do that right now, but.
There's not enough land in the bay to make
No,
something,
Exactly.
something happen.
Exactly.
But in general,
That's why we
there's,
came up with this.
there's
Yeah, I agree.
there's Alton Bay and then there's a little bit above Alton Bay, up as far as Rand Hill Road potentially, that could be used.
And we all know that 11 and especially 28 have limited access right now, and that could possibly change in the future. I mean, right now, it's unless you have 300 grand to throw out and you get it, but the more that happens, the more, I mean, and it will, happen eventually because that's just how the world works, right?
Yeah, but the point is that the town is putting this plan together.
Mhm.
And they can use this plan. The planning board
That's
can
what-
use
that's
this
what I'm
plan
saying, like, 'cause
to
it
go
will help
to the
that.
state and
Yeah.
say, this is what we really want to do. And
So your thoughts on this commercial by the circle to Bay Hill and say, it looks like that's going to encompass both sides of 28 right through to Old Wolfboro Road, right?
up as far as, yeah.
Okay,
as
now
far-
Old Wolfboro
Right,
Road
right. Up,
is going to see, that's where the access is going to have to come from.
right.
Because the state will say, well, you have this option. We're not going to give you this. They don't play well with others. So you really need to realize that.
No,
They don't.
realize that.
But if
And,
you went in through, for example, where the car wash is today and went up into the back around there, you could access it that way because now you have something that's right on the highway.
And what if we did have somebody come to town, they wanted to try to develop over there, it would help their cause if we had something in the plan that said that the town is trying to make that happen. Like that's what we're trying to, do that. So it would help that as well.
We're presenting this to you to later on develop in a better format. This is a suggestion, a proposal of how to handle the commercial areas of the zones. And then, like you said, Roger, where it makes the defined lines of where this could be taking place and where it doesn't would come later. That all come later, but this is the suggestion of what we're trying to propose.
So if you look,
So let me just a question to that then. So where there's no designation of a commercial space on this, does that mean by default that it would be not supported by the town in terms of the vision?
Right. So we're
And that would
supposed,
be zoned eventually?
yeah, so the planning board would have to say, okay, we're going to actually put some lines on the map someday. You're going to, over the next couple of years, you might put some lines
Those will
on
be
the
some
map.
interesting public hearings.
And you would have the public hearings and you get all the input and things like that. Because as you said before, Scott, it takes a lot of effort to actually
It's huge.
do all the surveying to get those lines and
All
you
the
have to
meets
get
and
them.
bounds and everything that have to be
Have to
done.
get them on as a warrant article that has to be passed by the town, then the town has to accept it. So this is at the very beginning of a vision that the planning board over the next 10 years might implement.
I guess is to look at that. I don't know if it's big enough then,
But the,
commercial proposed.
right. Well,
Okay, that's something that could
and
be.
that's good. I mean, that's possible.
Because developers need to follow this document. I'll just use for instance, over there at the village center. The master plan called for interconnected lots. I did that. Called walking distance to have a walking system. I did everything like that to follow the master plan.
Mhm.
And it made the planning of it go quite easily
Right.
because of that.
So, maybe there's a little more commercial that goes out 140 for a ways. I don't know, but that's what, I don't think we're going to be putting commercial down near the New Durham line or up near Wolfboro or.
And again, this is part of the state saying you need to update and look at these. You need to have a plan for the future for zoning and things like that. We had to look at it and say, okay, well, we need to think about what could possibly change in the future per state regulation. And so this is what we tried to do. Again, nothing in stone, but we had to look at it and try to come up with some formulated plan. And that's what we tried to do.
So we didn't,
So-
for example, we didn't put a commercial down near, on 28 down near Half Moon Pond. Near Crescent Lake.
Yeah.
We did not do that.
That makes sense.
Is it possible? I mean, there was some,
Well,
there's
there's a
a
store there
store
now,
there.
so they're there. So,
Right. but we didn't do that. All along 28, getting down to there, you've got that high ground. We got some people, there's a landscaper now that Doobie, is it Doobie?
There's a
yeah.
couple of them.
That are, they're
Yeah.
in there and that's it was a use that was allowed in the rural zone. But it's not concentrated stuff. And so.
We also should do a little soils mapping to see what these soils they'll take.
And that's what's the part of the effort that the planning board's gonna have to do going down the road. This plan doesn't get down to that level of detail. It just says, in general, this is a place where we ought to try to concentrate it. And then how do you do it? and all the nuances to make it happen have to, be worked out.
One thing I think is very good is the village district as such, because we're on a collision course to lose Main Street the way we see it now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna happen.
But the
Disappearance.
concept is developing the bay and the village as different units.
Right, well, they'd be two different breeds of
They're
cats.
Well, they are
totally
different units
Serve two
now,
different functions.
very
Yeah.
much so.
So that's the idea anyway, why all those Cs are there, but it's not, I don't know where the lines are. We don't, we can't figure it out. We don't know that right now.
This just
We
paves-
just think that if you look at the entire town, that makes sense to do it there.
But what we worked with, what Tara was starting with, was the interpretation of all the questionnaires of what people were asking for and what they were looking for. And these are sort of the areas in which they would like to see them done.
How many responses did you get?
Over 800.
800, yes.
And those were made available.
More than the average voting day.
And those were made available online for a few weeks when those came in. And of course, all information is available to the public.
Of course.
So,
Yeah, and so, but the thing is, you're gonna do, say you accept this tonight with this stuff, the edits and so forth. You go to a public hearing, you're gonna get feedback on the public hearing. You're saying that,
Oh, you
okay,
get
we
plenty
think
of
that,
feedback.
Definitely.
so what you say, so what's gonna happen is you say, okay, say you accept it tonight with these edits, right? Then, so you go to public hearing, you'll get a bunch, that means that you have accepted the document. This is a planning board's document, right? You go to public hearing, you get some more input, you might change it a little bit, but then you've got it as a planning document, okay? And then just like Zach or, any of the other things that we've put together over the next couple of years, you're gonna have to start working on trying to figure out how you actually do it.
Basically paves the way for future committees to work on just that for the next phase for the planning board, when you to look at it more closely.
And then
So
when,
by default, does that mean then that implies starting to develop the zoning 1 year, 2 years later then?
yeah, I would say, next year the planning board should get onto this a little bit, I would think.
It's gonna be an uphill battle just by nature. People
Yeah.
don't like change.
Right.
Spending the money. I mean,
Right, right.
Well, something that was asked me, and this is probably not even what we're talking about. If we change this commercial that you're talking about, first thing I've been hearing from a lot of people is what's happening to my taxes. Once you zone their area a commercial, if they just got a residential house there, what are you gonna do to their taxes?
Where our taxes come from primarily. is
I
like
know
was
where they
talking-
primarily
Yeah,
come from,
but-
but what's gonna happen to a residential home that's in a commercial zone?
It's still,
I would think the commercial would alleviate add
Mhm.
something to the tax base that would help the residential. By nature, a single family residence is the worst business decision the town could make. How much does it cost to educate a child? $15,000? Okay, so at one time I was doing a project and it's 1.3 children is the national average in a home.
yeah.
So you take that, multiply it by 1.3, let's say it's just $15,000. Okay. A $200,000 home, $300,000 home pays $3,000 a year in taxes.
Right.
The math doesn't work.
Right.
So
I can answer his question though. Your assessment doesn't change by what district you're in. The zoning isn't accounted for in that. It probably would increase their taxes because it would increase the value of that home because it could be made into a commercial business.
Yeah, but a
Well,
lot of,
not
a lot of
necessarily-
these people might be on fixed income or elderly, they can't afford.
but I think that would only happen if somebody developed as well.
No, it would, once you zone an area commercial, she just said it, the cost,
If the
the value
building-
of your
if-
property is gonna go up. so
Property values, their equity in their home goes up, so it all kind of works together.
Yeah, but I'm talking about people my age and older.
that's a
Yeah, I'm not making a value judgment on it. I was answering your question in a straightforward way.
I know, but what we have to agree that taxes are gonna go up.
And as
They're gonna go up anyway.
as the others have
We have to
explained.
talk to the appraiser to
That's-
get a good answer on that.
What's that?
We would
Talk
have
to
to
the
talk to
appraiser.
the appraiser to get a good answer.
He just said that the commercial, the value would go up. Sure, they could turn around and sell it for more money, but you might not want to
So the-
sell it.
The value would go up, but as people are explaining, as you could allow more commercial development, their actual taxes would go down.
If
If
the
it gets built
commercial
out.
areas had businesses that paid higher taxes,
Right.
the valuation of the town would go up and the tax rate goes down. So like
Right.
Tara says, you know, it
Have you-
might be a wash anyway.
Have you watched Rochester in that area? Some of the people down through there that held out as long as they possibly could, but their tax base and tax rates, because Walmart and everything was building around them, and here's one little house in the middle that they finally just couldn't afford the taxes. And I know some of the people that,
But
And
we
they
don't,
don't-
That kind of development is,
29 miles.
That's not
north.
that's not gonna happen here.
that's not what
We
we,
do.
But that's also a double-edged sword, is their taxes may go up as a result of that, but their value of their property went
Just
up
went up.
crazy. So when they sell it, they're gonna put more pennies in their
they're
pocket.
basically being forced to sell it.
Well, that can happen. Yeah,
But
you're right.
here's the thing
So
though,
what
right?
right do we have
But
zoning some
progress-
commercial and
progress
forcing somebody
happens.
to sell it?
Change happens automatically. So the whole purpose of the master plan is as a community to try to come together as a community to figure out how to best help move our community and our town forward in the best way that we see fit as a whole group together by taking everybody's information and trying to do pretty much what's best for all, which doesn't always include everybody, but that's really what we're trying to do. I understand. I wouldn't be happy if it were me and I had a house next to Walmart, but I also wouldn't want a Walmart being built down in the bay or up on the mountain. You know what I mean? So like, for me, I kind of think if you district it and it kind of makes sense. Somebody could possibly lose out on that. I suppose that's a possibility, but that's also a long term. I mean, this is not going to happen overnight, certainly not in even a year or two.
so Lee, the
You
issue,
just made
the
the
issues that you,
comment that you wouldn't want it in your backyard, so we zone it somewhere else and put it in somebody else's backyard.
No,
That's
I-
basically what you
No,
just said.
But-
no,
No, it's
that
not.
is not the mountain. I was just saying I wouldn't want it up on, like, in the middle of the farmland. I
You,
wouldn't want
you also
Walmart.
said you wouldn't want to be surrounded by Walmarts and all.
No,
that
what I
stuff.
said was I would feel badly if I was that person in that little house next to Tractor Supply that sat there all that time where the bank just went up. But you know, they just made bank, literally, and that bank went up, but they. But
Good
they
play on
really
words.
just bank on that home, right? And so I would not want to be that person. I'm sure I would feel upset if all of a sudden all of this building was coming up around me, but I also live on Route 11. I actually live on Route 11 in Alton. I might not be thrilled if something happened, but I live in an area and in a district where I know. So if you're in this area, I mean, it happens, progress happens. We're
It
just
won't
trying to
happen to
help
you
it.
on your Route 11 where you live. But that guy, he was 89 years old and was forced to sell his house because he couldn't afford his taxes.
So one
That's
thing,
because that was zoned
the-
commercial and
So, I mean, but you
What I'm
can't focus on any individual. I
why
mean,
can't you?
because we kind of have to look at this as a whole.
As a whole.
What's the best benefit for the town and the community as a whole? And the fact of the matter is, no matter what decisions are made, somebody isn't going to like it. Somebody is going to get hurt.
So
Yeah,
what you're
I mean-
saying, stomp on the old.
No, and I would also. I would
no,
also-
no, come on.
No, I
Then
think
why do we need to even
That's-
change?
I would like to point out also, though,
Why don't we
that
leave it the way it
I do
was?
not appreciate that a lot of times there was a comment from somebody within the planning board that thinks that we come at this from like, we're not coming after anybody. We did not make up these rules. We took a lot of information from a lot of different places. We did the survey. I mean, this was widespread. We're trying to do what's right for the whole community. And if something were to happen to an individual, that's not like we're gunning for anybody. We are not certainly wanting to raise anybody's taxes. We're not looking to put anybody out of their home. And we would obviously, as a group, and I would think as the planning board, moving forward, take all of that into consideration.
You keep
Concept.
saying the state, we gotta meet state requirements. Do we have to change anything?
Can I follow up on a few things about the zoning?
Yeah, but do we have to change anything? That's what I wanna know.
No, you don't. But I just wanted to make sure that you're following that this plan would move these larger footprint, higher impact businesses away from the densely developed neighborhoods. So it's gonna achieve less business being near homes, less large businesses being near homes by making these village districts be just for the kind of smaller businesses that belong in the villages, but creating a place for the larger footprint things like Hannaford, so that you don't have large footprint, high impact businesses in the village where you have neighborhoods. The idea of this plan is to create commercial opportunities for commercial development away from neighborhoods.
And I think
But-
that's the key point. I would agree with. that.
Just one, just
From this neighborhood
two
to,
more things I wanted to follow up on. I heard the term governing. The master plan doesn't govern anything. It's not regulatory. It enables possible future zoning changes. Future zoning changes should be consistent with the master plan. It doesn't govern them. You don't have to make them, but it provides an opportunity. It's better to look at it like an enabling document. And I've heard a couple times the misconception that you need to do meets and bounds and surveys for zoning boundary changes. You do not. The zoning boundary can be described as following a parcel line. It can be described as so many feet from the center line or right away of a road. Towns typically don't survey zoning changes. I understand that you were told that once, but it's not correct.
Yeah, and we did it the last time we did the zoning.
Yeah,
That's-
but I don't want you to feel, discouraged,
Blended.
like it's a daunting thing, because you don't need to do that at all.
It
People,
does need to be described so that you can find it.
right, and that's why we
Should follow property lines though, not so many feet from the center line of the road. We've been through that already and it's not equitable.
But in essence, one of the things I think that's most important, that we know that the future is out there and it's going to be coming. Progress is going to change how all of New Hampshire is affected. We're concerned with what's going to happen when it comes to Alton. What do we want to see that we want to protect in the town of Alton? Where do we want to see development? Where do we not want to see development? You have to look at it from it's not, if you do change zones, there are going to be winners and losers, obviously. There's no way you can avoid that. These are zones that were created in 1968.
And there were probably winners and losers at that time as well.
Unfortunately, they use roads as boundaries, which is a very poor concept. But, there are some changes that need to be made if we want to accommodate to what the citizens have said that they would like to see.
So to summarize, this map reflects the committee's interpretation of all of the responses to the questionnaires that went out.
That's,
Yes,
not just
That's
Pretty
not
much.
exactly true.
not just that. It's that, it's the committee's understanding of the community. It's where the wetlands and steep slopes and conserved lands are.
Mhm.
It's where how the current land use patterns lie. It's all of those things together.
Okay.
It's not just
It's
what
combined.
the
So
survey
when
said.
when
Oh,
we
yeah.
came up with some of these
Combined.
changes, again, with Tara writing RSAs, and she does this for a living and she writes for the state, we took that into consideration with all of the previously stated things. And this particular topic was not something that was just discussed at one meeting. This took us a couple of meetings to discuss as well, to go over before we even presented it. Knowing that this was, like, it's a hot topic, but something that does need to be addressed for the future. So we did put a lot of time into it before we put it in there. It wasn't like a one and done.
Worked on it a long time.
I think. you-
So I
you
just, I
addressed-
wanted to kind of try and finish my thought here and
Go
Tara,
ahead.
you already kind of finished where I was going with it, that the other contributing factors. But I think the point here is that this is a suggestion, recommendation only. This is a living document. These Cs can get moved around. The LRs can get moved around over time. And later, as we kind of work out all the details, is when the planning board will start to actually draw lines around
Yes.
Yeah.
each one of these letters.
Then you probably would have like, did a zone, okay, you probably have a public hearing on it.
Mhm.
And then you would try to explain it, and then you have to get it on a warrant article, right? And that has to be voted
Be
on.
protective gear.
Yeah, all that stuff. There's a lot of steps that have to go on. And that process, by the way, is good because it gets everybody involved with it
Everybody thinking.
and everybody thinking about it. So, you got to start somewhere.
Yep, I agree.
You know
We did.
that the master plan needed to be updated.
Oh, no doubt.
You know it did. And this committee was formed for you to help guide and make a guide for future reference. And that's what it is, a proposal of what we can do later on down the road and what you can still continue to work on over the next couple of years to upgrade and make it a better town. And we know that it's going to start building up. Look at the building department right now and how many more applications they're coming in. The new applications are coming in more than we've ever seen.
Is anybody else scared by the COVID influx? I mean, that was pretty
We-
scary.
We're getting a lot more people that are moving. People are on the move. People are moving into Alton. And so we have to make adjustments and preparations for the influx of people that are going to want to move into town and with their businesses.
And
So
because
that's why the questionnaire went out. What do you want to see? We want to protect what we have. We want to protect the lake, our mountains, our rural feel to the town. We want to protect that. But at the same time, we have to understand that we're going to grow whether we want to or not.
And we must offer modern conveniences.
And so this is going to be our guide. It doesn't mean it's in concrete. It's going to be something that you guys can work on. Say, okay, well, maybe this isn't going to work. We'll change it. But it's a guide.
I've beat this horse enough.
Yeah, the only horse that you let out of the stable and hasn't come back yet is, we talked about adding a C, commercial up on, 11.
Yeah, by Rand Hill Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
It's doing that already.
I would hate to see you do that without carefully
Right.
looking at things like the slopes and soils and whatnot, because that's the reason the committee ended up not doing that.
Yeah, we didn't do it because of what Tara just said, but
Let her say it again.
yeah, maybe be honest, I think
Yeah,
we
could you repeat that?
were talking, so.
Well, when we looked at things like the slopes and soils, it didn't look suitable for much more development.
Well,
But there is.
But there is a little area there, Tara, between Route 11.
I know where it is, but.
And
this
there are
is
good
the
soils
future-
there as well.
Oh, this
Yes,
is
they
the
have very good
future.
soils.
This is the future land use map. It didn't look like an area with opportunity for a lot more commercial development.
Lot more, so to put it there, because
It's
it's very
limited.
limited.
It's limited.
It
but-
was limited. And it is already doing it on its own right now.
Basically, it should
And
just
because
be
of the
more a-
limitation, we decided not to put the C there.
It should just be, it should be more of a general statement that we need to have more commercial rather than identifying it, because there's a lot, like we say, up there on Route 11, up
Mhm.
there at Jedry's, and there's probably pockets all over the place.
Well, the difficult,
And that's what we saw in the survey results. that-
Danger.
That's
That's the danger I see. I mean,
That's where
it should be-
people, that's what people are referring to when they say this reflects the survey results, because there are a lot of people in the survey complaining about businesses popping up all over town instead of a concentrated area around the village.
I think that's the key point, is that this is a vision about as much where you don't want commercial development as it
Yes.
is about commercial
Mhm.
development.
Yes,
And that's, if you want preservation, then you really need to look at this as in the reciprocal context and say, where do you not want commercial development?
yes.
And that's the way to look at this. And
Yes.
well,
There
I
was-
think the natural resource chapter does that pretty well.
We've had a problem where we were trying to rezone some places. And if it's just a small area, it's what's referred to by the state as spot zoning. And it's not permissible. So you have to have a general area that's large enough that is not just one person benefiting.
Well, but I think you got to be careful because if a big box store comes along with big bucks, they can change that pretty
But a
quickly.
big box can't go into the rural zone.
I will,
And it wouldn't pass the zoning test.
with enough money, anything can be done.
Exactly. Well, I'll revert back to, over there. Everybody was so against that Hannaford coming in. Well, I don't know about you, but every time I go there, it's hard to find a parking spot.
That's right. Exactly. I was just gonna say that.
And
It became awful popular
votes for
fast.
that.
Yeah.
It wanted to expand quite a bit.
Yep. And Tom and I have talked over the years, we can have a lot of these things if we just buffer them. That's half the battle. If the soil's
Right.
concerned and
That's-
make it so you
And
ride
that
down
was
the
an
street and the street looks the same as it used to.
For- and
Everybody's
the-
happy.
He had to play by some rules and put in the buffer zones, so it couldn't be seen from. Route
Well, no,
11.
actually,
And-
the site developer wanted to take the trees down, and I said, you want to take a drive with me? And then we went up, I was chairman at the time, we went up to the Drexel. the
Catherine-
Yeah,
Catholic
Catherine
Church,
Dressel.
Catherine
yeah.
Dressel.
And I said, see, there are a bunch of trees in front of it, you can still see the church. Those trees don't interfere with it, but at the same time, it gives you a perspective.
Mhm.
And he said, oh, I see what you're trying to do. He said, I said, you could hide it behind a wall. People will still find it. I mean, they'll find out where it is. But I mean, you just don't want it sitting there right on Main Street.
So one of the things we just mentioned was Jedry's Pit up on, it's in the rural zone, which is allowed because and it's a natural resource thing. It's a gravel pit.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
a logging
It's
operation.
a transfer yard now.
It's it's a contractor's yard, right?
Right.
Yeah, they bring stuff in, process it and sell it out again.
So-
But that's an allowed use in the rural zone. And so isn't, any of the logging operations that we have. Those will continue. That stuff's going to continue. That hasn't been changed. But we would like to see, based on what we heard and just kind of the way it would look better, is keep the commercial where it kind of is already starting right now, right around downtown, and find ways in there. Now, there's places where you see the two Cs between 28 and 140. Not all that
Yep.
land out there is conducive to development because there's some big chunks of wetland out in there that would be difficult at best. But there's still room in there to look at that as a possibility.
That's the old gravel pit.
Yeah, I mean, where Turtle Crawl is and out behind Water Industries, and then you get,
Yeah.
around the back way there, there's some places. So what if you took, isn't there a trailer transfer place or something on
Yeah, just above that on,
above the cemetery?
above the cemetery on the right-hand side. I can't think of the name right now, but
Dude, no. let me-
yeah, but that's
I
where
think of the name of it.
Tom
Tom Fry.
has his container business.
So,
Container
that area there could even
Right
be
after.
made bigger, make more of that type of thing in there, or even it could be a manufacturing plant that has, like over polyclad laminates or somebody like
Not
that.
Dow Chemical, you're saying, right?
No, but there's a lot of Freudenberg NOK over in Bristol. That's a big.
There are a lot of clean
Nice,
businesses
clean
that would be
manufacturing plant.
Very,
I
we
mean,
should
up
go
there in
after them.
Wolfboro on 109, it's rural, it's country road, all of a sudden GI Plastics.
Yeah.
Exactly, right.
That's a huge,
Right.
I mean,
But I don't know how that fits in
That
with their zone.
Yep.
But anyway, something like that gives local employment, and it's a clean, small manufacturing plant, medium size, whatever. That would be great, something in there, That's just the vision.
the choir
I don't
with me
know,
on that. I agree.
how this all gets worked out over time. And the processes that you have to go through in order to actually accomplish something like this. Will take over the next 4 or 5 years.
I would estimate, if you started working today on a change of the zoning map, you're talking a 3 to 4 year process.
I was gonna guess 5, but yeah.
How far are you talking about going on 28 south?
I think it
Approximately.
looks down, it's described down to where, before the high school. It would be
Like where the co-op is. That
It's
area.
where this guy has the trailers,
With the
whatever
tra-
his name is.
Fry.
Right. That's what, in general, it could it be a little
And-
further?
and
I
Just so you'll know,
Right,
I don't know if everybody knows, there is water now
A biomass.
at Turtle Crawl at 28. There's a hydrant out there, so municipal water is
is
there.
down there, yeah.
But there is an agreement with Mr. Carlton, who put that in because he bored underneath the river from Pine Street.
That's right.
Right.
And that he can claim some of his cost of all that.
Oh, okay.
That's in there, but to have
So
municipal water.
that's another important thing. The town actually
Think about
ram
that when we were trying to
water
figure
down.
out Where to go.
Yeah.
How far the water goes.
Yeah.
Things like
The
that.
water system really needs to be increased. There's like 800 customers. In like 400 seasonals,
Right.
so, it really needs to be done in sewer.
So
I see
that's
that crop
ongoing
up all the
problem.
time, and that's, I feel, an unachievable fix.
Very
Because
much
we
so.
missed the boat in 1970 when the Winnipesaukee River Basin project came through. We
Mm-hmm.
had 2% revenue sharing. The government picked up 98%. But that being said, we'd look like Guilford now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why Alton looks the way it looks, because it doesn't have.
Doesn't have sewer. Yep.
But it doesn't mean that you can't have a small package plant, with ground, disposal for limited areas.
It makes it very difficult for the center over there for me to
Very much
find
so.
customers that
Of course.
use water. I mean, I've got the water in there, all we need, but
Right.
there's only 8,500 gallons I can put in the ground.
And we have
period.
the
That's it.
vacant building directly across the street for how long now? How many years is it?
Yeah, and that's a
vacant
crime over
building?
there. I
It
mean,
is.
that's just a shame.
It is.
It is.
So.
That was a meat
So
market
that's-
and everything.
It's going to be an ongoing
the
problem.
Small town feel, so to lose that main street, like the village area is, people love that feel, like we're gonna have, light up night on the first Saturday of December, and that's gonna be a community thing. We'd like the lights at town hall and.
And
people
Santa
love the
Claus.
The whole town, like that main street feel. It's hard to keep that going with the lack of that, it's hard.
At one time, Irving was
Businesses to come
interested in where Robert's real estate is in the building out behind it.
Mhm.
But that didn't come to pass, but Irving wanted it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is possible to do, a limited sewer system, a limited water, just enough.
But where are we gonna put the system?
There are places.
But
Has to be worked on.
one of the recommendations we made early on in the document was that there be a study done in the village area of the septic situation. We don't know whether it might blow up or might not, what the stability factor might be. And that's something for the town to take on sometime in the next 10 years.
Because there is a thing that's already on the books is individuals can use town property to obtain septic system loading,
Right.
Shibley's and the pavilion, all that.
Right.
That situation, which is a good
It's
idea.
not an unsolvable problem. Let's put
No,
that
it's
way.
It
not.
just takes time.
And money.
And lots of money.
And you gotta
Lots of
start-
money.
And you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can go forward with this understanding, okay? And we can fix these edits on here.
Mhm.
Change the future land use map to say proposed or potential. I don't know what you want to say.
Proposed.
Proposed.
One idea,
What?
one idea, just one idea.
Exactly. I thought you had about a one idea.
No.
Oh, okay.
Thought you had one.
I do think it would be fine to take those two sentences out. I did a search for the document while you were talking, and there isn't anywhere else except the bottom of page 5-19 that we talk
519.
about rezoning the rural residential. So it sounds like we could take those two sentences out and alleviate some concerns about that.
So Roger, the last paragraph on page 519, Tara's proposing to strike that paragraph.
And he was concerned it was all through the document, but I did a search and it's just here. And in the action items at the end of the chapter, because that's where we summarized all of them.
But why go through this exercise and then take those out?
Yeah, I'm not, I don't agree. I think those both need to stay.
Because it explains
Right.
if you have a vision, you have to implement your vision at some point.
Right.
Right.
Well, leave it in for the public hearing and then decide if anybody else is concerned about it.
That's, I would recommend that.
Okay. Yeah, leave it in there.
So,
So basically, I guess one of the things we're coming up with is when you propose a public hearing, you have to have a finished product. But you're talking finances to refigure all of the paperwork. So we want to make sure that we have as many changes as done once and that's it.
that's,
You're saying that we've got the money to do these revisions. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
but if it becomes wholesale, big changes, right, which I would
Right.
think that would
No,
be,
that's not
That's
wouldn't happen, but.
Which is why that we have the list of
The
the
list of
changes,
the
wherever
changes,
those are here.
Yeah.
That's why
Right.
we didn't receive a new package with
Right.
all the.
Right.
We didn't do an edit.
Right.
Republic.
hasn't been edited.
so
yet.
are we then now going down this list of edits for everybody? Is that our next step?
I think so.
Or there's another way is anybody have,
Is there
we're proposing to
She just
do
gave it
these,
to-
is there anybody?
Do you guys all have this list?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Everybody read
I
the
would
list?
rather that we kind of approach this as, are there any
Get it?
objections to any of these items on this list?
Everybody's got this?
Yeah.
I did go through these. I mean, you captured everything that I had
Yes.
noted and then some.
This is
A
your
lot,
list
actually.
here that we checked through, and this is the new list.
And I'd suggest we can add this new blow up of the village area land use right in the document as well.
Right,
Yes.
Mhm.
so that would
This
be,
all blurry one.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's your
If we
zoning
can
map.
sharpen that up, I think that would be a real plus.
That's your zoning map. I can't do anything about the pixelated.
so it
The
would,
letters look okay. Everything else is blurry.
Yeah, because I did the letters.
yeah, so it would follow the proposed future land use map.
Mhm.
It would be the next page.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason it looks so fuzzy is because it's pixelated. When we blew it up, it just,
Well, yes, it's about this big to start with.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the way-
Yeah. You guys ever digitize your zoning, I will be in a lot better shape for maps using it.
yeah.
They've tried.
Well, I thought Josh
In process, I-
was working
Yeah,
on it,
it's the
but
starting.
yeah.
It is.
Hmm.
That's exciting.
I didn't, if I can jump in here.
Yeah.
At one point, and I went through this and this is really dry reading. So, it's, someone had mentioned to me about setbacks for shoreline protection that the board wanted to implement going from 250 feet to 500 feet.
No.
I'm really glad to see the awkward looks on everybody's face.
well, it's right. but
Because
where we talked
And
about
I don't, I
that-
never even heard that.
Yeah, no, where we talked about the shoreline, is you right now have 50 feet. But you
yeah,
only,
but the state goes back 250 feet.
yeah, well,
So,
we're not talking about the state, we're talking about your plan and your zoning.
of course you are.
Your
The state
zoning,
governs this.
your zoning talks about 50 feet and there is a recommendation to expand that to other lakes and rivers in the town, but not to make it bigger.
So you're talking about setbacks from the body of water,
From the reference line.
the high water mark.
Right.
I understand that.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something you already have, but just, we recommend.
So you're trying to tell me that if I have a house on a piece of property on the lake, and right now I can build 50 feet to the lake, you want to push me back to 100 feet?
No.
I don't know how you got 100 out of
What
it.
my understanding then?
Well, the,
Let
it's a
me,
little-
let me say it again.
Please.
Let me say it again. Right now, it's a 50-foot setback, but only on the lake and maybe part of the river. And the plan proposes it being 50 feet from the whole river and other lakes in town and other perennial streams.
Well, you got to be careful of that. There are some old subdivisions here that have quarter-acre lots, and if you,
yeah, they'd be grandfathered in, but
Maybe grandfathered.
I think it would be more of and this is something we can work on, but it would say wherever the shoreland rule lands today, that we would have this 50-foot setback, which would be the same as the state.
Well, no, that's what you do now.
Right.
This
But-
would apply it to.
Just want to
places-
include more bodies of water. That's the
Yes,
short.
right.
Right.
This would cover the places the shoreline, the state doesn't.
Right. And that's a question of whether we want to try to do that or not.
The most important thing on the questionnaires was water quality and the Lake Winnipesaukee.
Right.
Those were the absolute key.
Okay,
things.
but I also,
Setbacks on water is important.
okay, I understand that. I agree with you completely. But also I was reading, and I don't know if it was here or not, oh, I've been reading so damn much lately on this stuff, is that since the 70s, the Lake monitoring, that's what I was reading,
Right.
right in there. The quality of the water and the nitrates and things like that have much reduced. So I don't think we need to be limiting people in what they do, because the current day situations handle effluent much better and more environmental.
You're talking about the new septic systems and new.
Any
design.
septic system.
But
You know-
there are still a lot of places that don't have.
No, that's true, but they're becoming less and less and less every year.
Yes.
So eventually
Disappearing.
that will go away. But you know, I don't want to use this, that we're worried about the lake where these things have improved over the last 40 or 50 years.
No.
Right. but-
That's not what the data says, and not, if you read,
I read the data right here that you guys put together.
So do we all want to find that page?
That's what I'm
looking for right now.
look at page 3-4. The first time we met with you guys, you wanted more data and graphs to show the water quality problems that are growing. So that graph was added to.
They
page
have more
4.
weeds that are growing in the lake and other,
Oh, this was the long-term total phosphorus dissolved color data. This is page 3-4, and it's been increasing over time, not decreasing.
And we added that at the planning board's request because you wanted more documentation of the
the lake.
increasing water quality.
What page is that? Page 3-4, there's a graph,
-4.
surface water quality.
Long-term phosphorus.
And certainly, you know, we've got the problems with the fish hatchery and all that, so.
And aside from big point sources like that, development is the biggest correlation with phosphorus.
So was
Okay,
there?
this, what I'm referring to, I'm sorry, is at the very top of page 2.5. Dense cottage development on around the lake shore.
Okay.
Dense cut.
And if you read through there,
Yeah, that's talking about septic system failures.
right,
Have been rare.
So what it's saying is that they, you know, in spite of this dense development, it hasn't really shown up.
So coming back to 3-4 and with respect to that,
That's not what it's
I
saying.
asked specifically about the data for the last 5 years, which wasn't in here.
yeah.
And I haven't seen the chart that's updated on that. Has that been prepared or?
Did,
We don't have that data.
Well, it's important because I think, you know, the question is whether some of these data points at the top here that show, you know, excessively high levels, are those just aberrations or, you know, because the latest trend in terms of dissolved color is coming down, if you argue this. And I think having that data is important to really say whether it's getting worse or not.
Yeah, I think it was because the town stopped participating and didn't have volunteers to do the sampling.
yeah, because we looked for that data.
But then you can't draw conclusions that it's getting worse, it seems to me.
that UNH, we're part of that, aren't we? The Lake
Well,
monitoring,
Are again now, yeah.
huh?
We are now, but
Now,
We used to be a long time ago.
there was a, what,
a whole
5-year
chunk
gap?
that we didn't have that information.
Yeah, we just did it. for the
These
first time
trend
this
lines
summer.
just
Recently,
statistically.
because they used to do it, because that's where you hang the disc down in the water.
That's why there's a gap. It stops.
After Klaus's death, he was the one that sponsored it all.
Klaus Beeman, yeah.
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 Well, I think the other important thing to remember is when you're talking about future development. So future development isn't gonna have these septic systems that are failing.
Right.
And causing the problems.
The other thing is runoff. That, you know.
A lot of it is runoff.
No, that's why we're trying to do more porous pavements and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that doesn't work.
And also working on more of the,
Nobody maintains it.
drainage systems and culverts in town and taking care of those one by one.
Because
That's all.
I haven't seen the town vacuum their asphalt down to the bay that they put in the porous asphalt. The guy that put in the self-storage up on Route 11, he hasn't vacuumed his payment. So this is what I argued when we did these things.
And
We're
supposedly-
required to them, and now they're just gonna fail and the water's gonna run off when it has no other means to go.
And supposedly it was strictly mandated that it, you know, there was, the state was watching it.
We listened to that one day in it.
There was no way you could escape doing the vacuuming. And I think they vacuumed once, the first time.
No, it's a problem.
I
If
can't-
they don't maintain them, they won't work.
Right.
It's-
And so
That's exactly
therefore,
the-
the whole drainage property then fails. Because if you have closed drainage that you put it in things and then put groundwater recharge, you're purposely getting it in there right. But, you know, it just doesn't work.
So what Wolfboro did is they went to rain gardens. Those work better.
Little ones.
Yeah, little.
Yep. I think we did that over in Turtle Crawl. He had lots of little rain gardens around from several sites and he drained it into one area because he's very,
And you don't have to maintain them and.
right,
Yeah.
just, yeah.
So we learn as we go along, but there's something that as we develop, you're gonna have to control the runoff for sure.
Absolutely.
But at any rate, this summer, the lake experienced more cyanobacteria blooms. And they're getting worse. So they're just, you know, that's what, I don't know what the data says, but there's
Well, that's qualitative. You need to have some hard facts if you're going to put, make these arguments.
Absolutely.
So
But
just to,
also-
There have been studies of that over the past few years. It hasn't been as of recent, but they had studies of working on mitigation for.
And a
for
lot of
the-
our-
the-
But
the
doesn't those studies?
Merrimack River.
Doesn't those studies show that it depends, the bacteria amount from the amount of rain we get?
It's not bacteria,
A portion of it.
it's
This is a
nutrients.
dry.
Nutrients in the water,
It's phosphorus and nitrate.
phosphorus, yeah.
Yeah,
And temperature.
Fertilizer.
so
Fertilizer,
let's not get on climate.
animal waste, human waste, it's all combined.
And, but a lot of the discoloration of the lake is a result of the marsh. There's just so many
That's right.
organics in that marsh. It just taints the water, makes it look like tea, and that's what we see in the bay.
Is
So
the
we
marsh
do-
connected to the lake?
Sure it is, right down the Merrimack River.
Yes.
River.
That's the whole.
It's true, that's what the whole thing-
Shed.
The marsh is on the right and the river's on the left.
No, you go down from Johnson's and you come all the way down through, that's the marsh.
That river.
Comes into
actually-
comes out of the Merry Meeting.
Where the island moved.
Oh, no, that's,
Oh, that's Mill Pond.
that's sawdust. There, because when the sawmill was there, a lot of the sawdust
That's
got in the
different.
water
Yeah,
and that
that's
made
Mill.
more tea color.
It's Mill Pond.
Yeah.
So,
We're talking about where the fish hatchery is, where Merry Meeting River comes
All of
into the
yeah.
fish hatchery, and the fish hatchery goes down Merry Meeting River, comes across,
because Parker Marine, when they
Yeah.
dredged
comes into
probably
the marsh.
30 years ago, they pulled out just tons of sawdust.
Took down 20 feet.
One of the things we're
Sawdust.
gonna have some data from this summer, okay? Because Tom led the Lay Lake monitoring program this summer.
Okay.
And we had a bunch of measurements that we made. We haven't got the data back from UNH yet. So we can use that. As part of it.
That was what I wanted to point out, that on this little graph here on 3-4, that having the dot for 2022 on here would,
Be
Be
very
very helpful.
beneficial.
Right.
yes, it
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
revealing.
Agree, and we agree.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so we try to work.
So
on that.
this was the record when we had, I guess there was look like there was a break in around 2000, right?
Yeah.
And then we had some more data and it goes up and down depending on the season.
Can you go back with Lay Lake and find out what their last readings were here?
That's what I'm saying. We took them this summer. That's it.
No, I'm talking about
Before.
20 years ago when they
That's what this,
stopped.
that's what this map.
Yeah, that's what this
That's
is.
what we
Okay,
had.
so
This is.
So this, in essence,
1990.
we knew we needed more information. We tried to work on that. We have Lay Lakes this year and we're waiting for that
So,
information.
but this is
But
accurate.
taking in all of the information that we had, the survey, other people, the whole thing, obviously still trying to plan for the future. Obviously growing, keeping your, obviously the Lake Winnipesaukee is our golden egg, any other body of water or lake or stream, that's what people love around here. You need to keep those.
But just looking at the data here, Doug, you can see the trend line, the least squares analysis of those data points. It's rising, even though they're up and down. Okay.
It would be good to have that. Unfortunately, if we got a 5-year data lapse here, I mean, it is what it is. but
Right. So
yeah,
what
I
we can
think
do is we'll keep this and we'll add the results that we got this summer. How's
Exactly.
that?
Do we know when we're to receive those results?
I'll contact UNH.
UNH.
We could add them in a different way. We can't add them to the graph that we took from a report, but I want to add that this is a 30-year trend. And based on that, UNH recommended implementing best management practices. If you see things improving, that's a reason to do the best management practices even more, not give them up.
But is this a statistically driven dashed line there in terms of least squares analysis
Yes.
and the like?
Well, it's the raw data, and then that rising line is just the least squares of all those data points.
I just want to understand if it is statistically significant. That's the key point.
Yeah, what does this increase really mean?
Right. If it is an increase, I mean.
Right.
And the other thing is, and the anecdotal data is that we're still seeing cyanobacteria blooms, Gloeotrichia this summer. They headed over at
But we've had those. We always have those.
Yeah, but this has been worse.
It's getting worse.
It's been
The
worse.
study that was done a few years ago.
Well, as they say, let's bring some
Definitely
science to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. But what we'll do is keep this.
So no
We'll add
pressure.
the new
Paul.
data.
That's
How's
fine.
that?
We're all looking at you now.
Email now.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Go ahead.
Should
We'll
have
wait.
some data. Should have some good.
The last sample we took was in October, right? Early October.
Early October.
Now, have you ever taken any samples in the water up behind the old town dump on Coffin Brook Road?
No,
I'm not aware of it.
we have
Or
water
is that a sore
samples.
subject?
We have water samples
I
in
think that's
Coffin
not a
Brook.
subject for tonight, regardless.
It is, because it simply dumps into Winnipesaukee.
Sure it does.
It does.
28.
And the Coffin Brook
That is-
aquifer is huge.
Soil samples before that was
That's usually where they
redeveloped.
test is where
So-
an inlet comes in.
Yeah, but
That's where they
there-
test.
there's a. Gotta be, I don't know, 30.
Guy Moody's old spot, you mean?
Huh?
Cy Moody's old place?
Well, it's across from Portuguese house, actually,
It's the old town dump.
where Clyde Claflin hung out.
There was an application for a subdivision in there. Oh,
But this is still owned by the town. But it's
There's
a
no-
retired dump.
There's
Like,
no houses on this dump.
no, this is a retired dump.
well, there was another one that was the town dump that was on.
That's on the letter S?
Road.
No, that's
Letter
Coffin
S.
Brook Road. That's the one we're talking about.
That's what he's talking
Let
about.
it rest.
There were soil samples done before, and that was subdivided.
Not the dump.
Yes.
All right,
I know because I covered it.
all right. You guys can debate this.
Well, no, we're talking the phosphates and stuff. That dumps into Winnipesaukee.
Right. The water sampling subject matter is one thing. It's, who developed the dump and who didn't. That's another discussion.
Used to go there and shoot rats.
So. So a little more data, the most current data, I think.
That's what I was trying to get
Okay.
at. Was
And we
the
can
data.
That can be
We can
added.
put that
Tom.
in the text.
Sorry?
We can just put that in the text in here.
Mhm.
That says, and the latest data was, and because it's going to be a 5-year break,
Yeah, that's fine.
and just simply say,
Just to add the data in there. That's fine.
this is what we found this past summer in the summer of 2022.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe there's a need to, New Hampshire Lakes has had some good publications out about,
They do agree.
the cyanobacteria problem in all the lakes region. So
I
it's,
think that's key. I mean, if there's other sampling points on the lake that could be used to help support this, that would be beneficial even.
yeah, I mean.
Lots of towns are involved in this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like it all has to be from site 25, in my opinion. It's, the
Yeah.
point is there really a long-term trend line for phosphorus levels going up
Well, a
still?
lot depends on, how much activity there is near where the test site is.
Yeah, but it's all a lake at the end of the day.
Where was 25? Was
that-
that, what was site 25? Was that out near Rattlesnake Island out there? Way out?
Believe so.
To do one at Little Mark, I know that.
Yeah, we had one there, we had one off of Black Point, and then we had 3 more down in the bay. Yeah. Anyway, we fix it.
Yeah, with deep site.
Thank you.
Okay, so getting back to the question at hand, any more comments on the edits at all?
Good.
Okay,
Oh, silence all night.
yeah. Sounds pretty quiet.
Don't knock it.
Yeah. So at this point, we have to make a motion?
Should we entertain some public information? We have people sitting here. I think it would be appropriate.
So my understanding is that there is no public
It's a workshop. But we-
portion of this.
but what does input hurt?
Well, that's coming at the public meeting.
Yeah, well,
Well, there was other people that would have came, but they were
Well,
told not to because they wouldn't.
Exactly.
And then you're gonna just be putting it off even longer.
It's not putting it off. There's a
The-
difference
this
between a meeting
procedure.
in a
and a
workshop.
public hearing. This is a meeting. It's a workshop between the two
That's
entities,
preparing. to
not a
present.
public hearing.
No. Okay. All right. So my question was, do we need a motion?
And where does the motion come from?
Right.
I think the planning board would need to vote on scheduling the public hearing, and I'd caution you about holding it up for the latest sampling data, because that has to go through quality control at UNH and could be a while.
But we had samples that were taken over the course of the summer. Are we just waiting on the results of the October samplings?
Well, that data goes somewhere else for quality control. We wouldn't want to put the raw data in without it being released, without it being approved for release.
Right, we would not be able, we gotta ask.
He
Trey
can-
Trapp,
he can look into it.
what the status of it is, because we started taking them in June, right?
Yeah, we did get some information.
And we have some information, but not all of it.
And that's fine. I mean, I wouldn't hold up the master plan on this thing,
Right.
but I think if we're gonna have these discussions, we really need to have data going forward.
Sure.
Understood.
All right, so we'll have an idea roughly when we can get UNH to provide back the
I
salt.
think they've run the samples already, and they're probably all done, it's just hasn't gotten here yet, that's all.
So
And when they do their QA, they do the tests at the same time they do the samples. All done.
So when you do the tests, you take physical water samples?
Yes.
Okay, because before, when they did the Lay Lake, and I could be wrong about the samples, but they usually would hang a disc down and they
We did
just
that too.
measure.
Well,
So-
the
If it
disc is
stops
one thing,
in.
but they have to take samplers.
So we just- I'll tell you very briefly what we did. We took the water temperature down to the
Site test.
the thermocline where it starts to turn over. And then we did a Secchi disc, this is what you're talking about, which is a black and white disc that you look at through a scope down through the
Bathoscope.
water. So that you can see, and then you see where you can't see it anymore. And it was really good. It was usually 11 meters. This is like 36 feet, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
And then we took a big water sample and a small water sample. And then they ran nutrients on those, they ran bacteria and other things on it. So we should have a nice array of information coming back.
Do we know why we have that 5-year bust? Why do we stopped doing it.
Because just nobody wanted to do anymore. You got volunteers, Bobble.
Volunteers run out of gas
Yeah,
eventually.
you know, and we're all getting older. too.
What I was trying to get at is, do they try to find where the high concentration is coming from?
There are specific areas so that we're looking at big chunks of water in the lake. For example, there's one, the one we took was off of between Treasure Island and the end of Rattlesnake this way, sort of towards where Ship is, okay,
Yep.
right in that triangle there. And then we took one in the deepest spot, which is where they
On
fish
the-
for lake trout, right? Off of Little Mark Island, out in the big part of the lake. By the way, Alton has the deepest water of any town in the lake. We have the deepest part of the lake. is in
180 so
Is in
deep.
Alton, yeah.
That's off the
Consistently
east side of
deeper than-
Rattlesnake.
But no, the whole basin out there is the deepest part. If you go up over the broads, it's only 60 feet deep. In here, it's 150.
Well, the
feet.
bay's what, 30, 40 feet, something like that.
Yeah, so, and then we came in down the bay, right? About, and there's three more of them, and the last one was taken right at the bandstand.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is rivers. Did you sample rivers?
No, this is just the overall quality of the lake
Right, but what
proper.
I'm saying is, have you tried to find where
The source of
highest-
these things.
So-
highest source is?
So Gene Young, who worked on the cyanobacteria issue with for the Merry Meeting Marsh. And you guys, you ran a bunch of samples, they ran all the way down the river. So we have information from that study, which is different, okay, of what's coming in on Merry Meeting River.
Which we were talking about briefly.
Yeah, and it's talked about in here. A little
Put
bit.
that cheesecloth under the bridge, it'll filter all that stuff out.
So
Over the end of the call.
So, are we motioning?
Says.
Motioning?
We need it.
Oh, that's, I was trying to figure out if we need the motion.
So if-
Smelting.
Okay,
You
so if
you would need to vote to schedule a public hearing if, with these changes.
yeah, so what you've decided tonight is that we're going to make these changes and we're going to go to public hearing. That would be what you vote on.
Yeah,
Doesn't
and
mean
I
that
guess
you-
that's my question is in the workshop, do we,
Yeah,
Yes.
but you don't have to say you accept this whole thing because you haven't heard from the public yet.
right?
So what you say is we
Then
think
then
it's,
we're gonna move it.
it's in good enough shape that we can move it off to public hearing.
We can move forward with it.
I'll make a motion that we move forward to a public hearing
With the changes made
with the
tonight.
changes made.
to what date?
Now you need a date, right?
So now we need a public hearing date.
So I can have the changes and final format into you, Jessica, by about December 9th, and then it needs a 10 clear day notice.
You could run it in January.
Because this is not conditional to the town meeting.
No,
No, I think to try to do anything before January. I can't see us getting too much public.
Well, you got a few other things between now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
there
I
is,
would
there
rather
so
try
there
to
is another
push a
public.
little bit after.
I would also feel more comfortable if we scheduled something in January.
Okay.
So when will you be done with zoning amendment hearings and?
We're public hearing for our zoning amendments is in December.
December 20th.
The third week.
There
of
was
January.
just as a by the way, in the paper today that came out, a nice article about the ZAC and the proposed amendments. Right on the front page.
Do we want to schedule it on the same night as our January planning board meeting, which is the 17th? Or do you want to do a separate night?
I think it should probably be a separate night. I
Okay.
think,
I would agree.
It could be involved.
yeah.
Tara, are you going to be at that public hearing?
I can be by Zoom.
Okay. So I think we should see what maybe Tara has available if.
Yeah, looking at my calendar, Mondays and Tuesdays all look good in January right now.
What about January 10th? That's a Tuesday.
Good.
That work for everybody else?
Yeah, we need an alternate date though, don't forget. It's January. We call it winter.
It doesn't snow here, Tom.
Yeah, you can't do that in the notice. so.
Alternate?
With any luck.
You think the 24th is an alternate? Because the
They're
17th.
available. So if we scheduled it for January 10th and had an alternate snow date of January 24th.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Okay.
As a point of order, I hope everybody remembers where they were 59 years ago today.
Oh, yes.
JFK.
I was in,
I was in school. Kindergarten, matter of fact.
French class.
Maybe first grade.
biology.
My family was moving and I thought that looked a little suspicious when I look back on it.
24.
They released
All
everybody.
right, so we have a motion and you're willing to supplement that with
Yeah,
adding the public
motion-
hearing date of the 10th
of the 10th, yep.
with an alternate date of the 24th?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
Can I'm
You're a planning board member.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm still a member, but I shouldn't make them. I'm on the other team.
Works out better this way.
So motion by Bill, seconded by Doug. So any other discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes.
Thank you. Happy
All right.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you very much.
That adjourn the meeting.
Thank you all. Can we stay longer?
You can.
We stay.
Hang out all night.
Go home.
So